Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues, and we welcome in a familiar guest today.
Yes, today we are welcoming back Joe Castiglione, the athletic director at the University of Oklahoma. A couple of weeks ago we did an update on Oklahoma State University athletics with Mike Holder, and we're doing this show today to get up to the same point of knowledge about the Oklahoma program, what's going on down at OU.
And in September, everybody's thinking football, so we'll get Joe C's comments on football, but there's a lot of other things to talk about as well. Joe Castiglione, today's guest on The Verdict, and we'll be right back.
What I can offer is insight into understanding the Native American art, how these artists are expressing themselves as cultural people. I am Heather Ottone. I'm a Native American researcher and curator, and I am Chickasaw. I can remember in first grade the teacher saying, "Well, you're so lucky you don't look Indian." That was difficult to hear because it was what I was. It's what I am. I think there's a renaissance going on amongst the tribes. I think the Chickasaws are leading that. We didn't die. We're not gone. So what are we now? And what can we do now to start to form that identity, to survive into another century? And to have the culture guiding us into that future, that would be significant.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
A very familiar guest back, and we're really pleased to get him to come in, particularly this time of year when so much is going on. Joe Castiglione, of course, is the athletic director at the University of Oklahoma and has been for the past 17 years, working on his 18th year. It doesn't seem like it's possible it's been that many years. During that time, teams under his supervision have won 10 national championships, 72 conference championships, many, many All-Americans and the like. Been great success in the program brought about by the student athletes attending at the University of Oklahoma. Not only do they excel on the field or the court, but they also excel in the classroom. They have a very high record, 3.0 average for several years in a row now for all athletes across the board. It's quite an accomplishment. University of Oklahoma's program is financially self-supporting. In fact, not only does it support itself without any help, any money help from the university, but it gives money back to the university on a program that we'll want Joe to explain to us a little bit. So Joe, welcome back. Sure glad to see you again for the 16th time here on The Verdict.
It's great to see you both.
You haven't changed a bit.
Neither have you. I think we're all as old as some of the books here on your shelf.
Well, and if you pull the sawed-off books off the shelf, you'll see that they're only half there, and we also fit that description.
Hey, a big honor for you and Oklahoma with you being selected the chair of the basketball committee for the NCAA tournament. That's got to feel pretty good.
It really is. It's one of the most prestigious committees anybody in intercollegiate athletics can serve.
And a lot aspire to, I expect.
It really is. There's a lot goes into it, and this year I'll be working with 9 other great people that are commissioners, athletic directors, that are throughout the varying levels of Division I. And so it's been a special honor to be on the committee the last few years, and even more to serve as the chair.
Well, it's $1 billion endeavor, and so and maybe I'm understating.
Well, you're talking about the
tournament itself. The tournament itself. But what does this committee look at? I mean, besides the tournament, what all is involved?
Well, it's also one of the most iconic sporting events in the entire world. I mean, during March, all eyes are on the teams that make it to that point and get to represent their universities or states. And March Madness is something that evolved. It just wasn't automatic. And so you're carrying the the weight of a lot of responsibility. And we're not only charged with the responsibility of selecting the teams, 68 that will compete, but we also are involved in running the entire tournament. So we get involved in hearing bids from prospective host cities for future Final Fours or other regional events, as you know, and right here in Oklahoma City. But also just the whole structure behind it, the negotiation of television rights, and we've been, this group I've been part of, been very focused on elevating the student-athlete experience through the course of the tournament and making, important and I think necessary changes that are serving student-athletes even more than they did previously. So if our legacy is anything going forward, is that the excitement and the following for this tournament is as good as it's ever been, if not better. But most importantly, the student-athletes are having an even better experience than it just being named to be in the tournament or be part of the tournament. We're doing some other things that I think they'll enjoy for the rest of their life.
Yeah. Let's talk about football. It's September, and what are the prospects for the Sooner football team?
Well, we're always excited this time of year.
Well, expectations are always high.
But, there was a time when we were trying to raise them. Back when we were in these early shows,
That's right.
we talked about raising the expectations, and now it's managing them a little bit more. But being part of Oklahoma, we always understand that the expectation for Oklahoma football is going to be high. We didn't get to be the winningest program in modern day college football without knowing that we've been fortunate to have unreal student athletes over those many decades, and great coaches and people that have been in the stands supporting our program, and their support allows us to invest it back into the program so we can create that continuous success. So we're looking forward to getting our season underway and focusing on trying to make the improvements and hopefully be in a position to compete for the conference title. And if we do that, we might have a chance to do some special things in the postseason.
How are season ticket sales going this year?
Kent, actually, they're better than they were last year. And I know people don't want to
How do you accommodate that?
We found some seats.
Folding chairs or something?
Yeah, the season tickets, I should be more specific. The season ticket sales are better than they were last year, even though we were coming off that great win against Alabama and euphoria was peaking. We have been finding a way to open up some seats that we held for single game requests, and we still hold some for single game requests, but we put more out there for people who are interested in season tickets and trying to build our season ticket base. Our renewal rate was around 96-97%, and there's always probably a few people that will give you their story that they got mad and dropped their tickets. Well, I'm sorry for them because there was somebody standing in line that picked them up. But then we have people that, our fan base is becoming more veteran, as we say, and then
that's a kind way to say it.
People are, have jobs that pull them away and they move to different areas. But we have season ticket holders all over the United States, really. Obviously, the bulk of which are here in Oklahoma or the upper part of Texas, and we're just trying to find ways to generate new support. And as we sit here and tape, we're going to have our 99th consecutive sellout.
Wow!
Yeah, wow!
So
there was a day when I suppose you held a game and you sold a program, and soft drinks, but the game day experience wasn't nearly like it is today, and the expectation wasn't nearly like it is today.
Mick, well said. And I could tell you that all of the efforts that we are making, last year when we were here with the show, we talked about the master plan for the football stadium, and then as you know, we launched one phase of it that'll be finished in time to accommodate next football season. It's a massive project. There's parts of that project that would continue beyond that, but the seating bowl itself that is enclosing the entire end zone, which will, for the first time the Gaylord family, Oklahoma Memorial Stadium will be a true bowl. And while the seating numbers will increase slightly, our focus was just exactly about what you said, in creating an unforgettable experience for the fans that come to the game. It is all about experiential and the thinking of people investing their time and their money to come and be part of sporting events. That's just the way it is. And you know, the challenge for us to sell out games is greater than ever before.
Yeah.
It's not that people have lost interest. There's just so much more that pulls them away. Yeah. And we have to create that experience that they can't do without.
Right.
Everybody talks about the media platforms, the digital platforms, the 100, whatever it is now, it's probably a 200 square inch TV that you can put in your house, keeps growing. But and those are all part of it. You know, people think, well, it's an easier way for me to follow the team. But the one thing they can't replicate is the game day experience.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to make great.
Let me throw in a personal note briefly. I'm just a romantic, I guess, but one thing that always made me excited at an OU football game was the band coming on the field and the enthusiasm it generates. There's even been, of course, not directly under your supervision, I guess, but there have been changes in that regard that make the band performance even better.
Well, our band director of several years came back, and actually it was toward the end of last year, and has rejoined. Brian Britt, he's special. We were really disappointed when he left to take a superintendent's job in Texas, and we're glad to have him back. I say this, the band oversight doesn't come under the athletic department, but over the time I've been working with bands, and this goes back to my earliest days as a marketing director. Brian Britt has been, the best I've ever worked with. The guy is incredible, and we're really excited about the pride of Oklahoma, and they really are, a big part of what creates not only the fan experience, but the energy for our team. And it's not just at home, but they travel a good group on the road. So I know when we run out on that unknown field and look up in the stands and see part of the pride of Oklahoma, it's a jolt of energy for sure.
We're going to take a break and be right back. Joe Castiglione, the University of Oklahoma's athletic director, is our guest today on The Verdict.
The land to us is how we make our living. It's not an easy life. This land that OERB restored for me had pump jack stands, it had old building foundations with pipes sticking out of them. I could never have been able to afford to do these improvements like OERB did. They didn't just come out and put a Band-Aid on it. It's back to the prairie.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers, and our guest, OU's athletic director, Joe Castiglione. There's always construction cranes on your campus. What have you got working on the athletic department side?
As we just touched on briefly on our past segment, the construction of the south end zone is the big project. It's a $160 million privately funded project that is actually underway. If people have been over by the stadium and have seen the demolition of what was the Switzer Center, now we're obviously recreating a new Switzer Center inside the envelope of the south end zone, but to try and get that seating bowl ready for next year, the beginning of the season, we have them already underway, doing as much as they can with construction as we work around the regular season. And when the season is complete, then part of the south end zone stands and the video board will be removed, and then they'll start building to connect that seating bowl.
So you won't lose any seating for this season?
No. Actually, going into next season, our seat count will rise with the addition of the extra seats, obviously. But as we work through the rest of the stadium and adjust, as we've talked to, of course, I know it was a year ago we talked about the master plan, but we're renovating the seating bowl. We're putting in new bleacher seats. Every seat has an 18-inch center. Now that might sound kind of funny to describe it to some that are listening, but there are varying size of seats in the stadium. Who knows over the years what was going on? Maybe they were trying to squeeze a few more in, but I just say that, in today's world, our fans, there are more fans that carry larger hopes and dreams with them to the game. And so we have to accommodate that, right? So every seat will be an 18-inch center, and we're adding handrails, just stuff that, the modern stadiums already have, the codes that have changed. And so when we do that, some of those rows are getting smaller in the numbers of seats to accommodate that. So by the time you work through the attrition of those seats and move people around to some of the new areas, and then we build the second phase of the west side, the seating count will be roughly the same as it was before we started. But going back to that point you mentioned, Mick, the goal was not to make it a bigger stadium, it was make it a better experience. And then in the south end zone, the underneath, as I mentioned, all the student athlete facilities, coaches' offices, meeting rooms, strength and conditioning, sports medicine, as we develop our rehabilitation and sports science, all will be constructed in that envelope and be done in the spring of 17.
Let's talk about television rights and the Big 12's package and how people can engage with your football team this year.
Our growth in our own sports television network that we had in the partnership with Fox has really gone quite well. We had endeavored to try to have 1,000 to 1,500 hours, and we approached 3,000 hours that we distributed last year through the Sooner Sports Network. And it's a way for us to engage in so many other ways with fans who might want to be here but can't. So that has helped us locally. It's created opportunities for us to get more of our sports that we're never getting television exposure on.
Yeah, I see games from soccer, men and women, and also see it seems like more coaches shows.
More coaches shows.
More information.
We even, and with our relationship with Fox, people are seeing wrestling and soccer, tennis,
softball,
gymnastics, softball, baseball, some basketball, men's and women's basketball. Because of the television rights situation in our conference, we do not have live football, but it's the idea that live football creates the platform for all of the other distribution models. And then, our conference package television rights, every game is on TV now.
Yeah.
And so between that unique partnership, Fox and ESPN, all the television games are. And of course, with the success, that Coach Stoops has had in football, and our name in Oklahoma, that the national platforms are open to us as well. And then going into men's and women's basketball, what Coach Kruger has done, getting our team to the Sweet 16 last year, and Buddy Hield coming back to be part of our program, and I'm going to start the season as a top 10 team. You start doesn't mean you're entitled to it. You have to earn it the rest of the way.
Right.
And Sherry Cole, with probably the youngest team she's ever put on the floor, was able to get her team to the 16th consecutive NCAA tournament. won a game, and all those young players are now back, and the energy in the practice court has been great in the off season. So, you know, those two programs look to be prime, but they're going to get a lot of television exposure, big games that they continually play. You know, we've had this kind of thing that goes through in our scheduling of the out of conference. We think about striking the right balance, but in the end, we want to play the best, and we'll play them wherever, whenever, and I think that helps either build or create long-term interest in the program.
We were talking before we started the show about the number of student athletes your department has to supervise, or however you want to phrase it, during the course of a year. That's on average about how many?
580.
And that's quite a load, I suspect.
Well, it is, but it's such a joy. That's the best part of my job, or any AD's job, is to be able to, you know, work with student athletes, try to help put them in the best position to be successful. You know, everything that we're trying to do is to create, you know, world-class experience with a championship outcome, not just the opportunity to compete for championships while they're with us, but to be prepared for what comes next in their life after graduation, and to be champions either in something or for something as they move through the rest of their life. And we've been very intentional of what that student athlete experience is all about, and trying to give them all the resources that they need.
Cost of attendance. We've talked about that in a prior show with Mike Holder. I guess this will be the first year that the University of Oklahoma is engaged in that process of paying, giving athletes money for attending and expenses that are attendant to that.
Yeah, tell us more about that, because that's something that's fairly been talked about a long time, but it's new.
A lot.
Yeah.
And since we last met, there were conversations we had about what might happen, and of course, since then, a lot has happened. Starting with the change in our governing and governance structure. Long ago, we wanted to try to do this and offer the additional financial aid that, quite candidly, was available to a lot of other students on campuses around the country, but for whatever reason, NCAA rules prohibited their ability to get that. You know, that we weren't trying to create more financial aid for student athletes than the rest of the students. We're trying to create equal, you know, so wouldn't happen. And I understand why, you know, after that rule got put in several decades ago, and then people adjust their financial structure, it's a big additional expense. So in the long continuum of Division I programs, where some that are at the level like Oklahoma and Ohio State and Alabama, and some that are qualifying for Division I status that don't even sponsor football, you know, the numbers were conflicting. We could never get enough votes. Well, that structure changed, and ideas like this and items like this can be put into a different governing structure. So the schools, it's about 65 schools that can vote changes and impose that opportunity on themselves. It's permissible, not required, you know. And so in Division I, other schools are now acquiescing to providing cost of attendance, but it's not a requirement. It's creating a permissibility. So right now, from a financial aid standpoint, this is by far the best opportunity that student athletes have ever had. You know, back when we didn't have as many restrictions, some people would say, you know a lot of guys that played in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and he said, we even used to have laundry money, you know.
Right.
Well, they have way more than laundry money now, because not only do you get the cost of attendance, which is a metric that's figured by financial aid offices at universities, not athletic departments. But if you qualify for a Pell Grant, which didn't, exist back then, you get to keep that on top of. So by the time you pay for tuition, fees, room, board, books, you get the cost of attendance. And if you're in the category of qualifying for a Pell Grant, that's pretty significant financial aid. And I think they have the chance now to have the right kind of experience and finish without any debt. That's something very few students finish with.
We're going to have to make that the final word. Jill, thanks for
think
coming
it's
on the
good.
show.
Make it the final word. When it's benefiting student athletes, that's absolutely where it starts and ends.
Kent and I'll have
Thanks,
the final
Joe.
word when we get back.
There are now 11 million of us who live here and work here. I was 15 when I came here 6 years ago. I raised my family here. I drive my truck to my job every day. The only difference between now and 6 years ago, I do it legally. I wanted to. Because this is my home.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be Mom and Dad to me.
You have children coming from a different lifestyle, different mindset. You have to open your arms and really do what you have to do to have that child become a part of your family. And if it's more patience, that's what you do. Kids gotta know they can trust you. And that's what we've tried to do with these kids.
You will always be Mom and Dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
We are back on the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers wrapping up the show with Joe Castiglione, the athletic director at the University of Oklahoma. We got some website information to pass along to you. More information about Joe and the Sooner Athletic program at Soonersports.com. That's Soonersports.com. And we have a website. We'd love for you to go to theverdict.tv and tell us about a guest you'd like to see on a future show. That's going to do it for now. We'll see you next week right here on The Verdict.